On this video, we're going to be discussing the Kybalion, all 7 Hermetic principles, and 3 of my biggest takeaways from this book that you can actually go out there and apply to your life so that you can manifest your desires at a quicker and easier rate. That's all backed by neuroscience and energetics. What's up, guys? My name is Nico Rapkalis. Glad to have you here on the YouTube channel. If you're new here, make sure and subscribe as we make a lot of these type of reviews and a lot of other great content that's really going to help you become that best version of yourself, raise your frequency, eliminate those subconscious blocks, and just truly become that person that you know that you're destined for. So let's dive into this. I just finished reading this book. I've also been diving deep into some other material of people reviewing this book, and I want to break down all the Hermetic principles and really what's involved in this book. And then more importantly, I want to discuss the 3 biggest life-changing takeaways that I had from this book so that you can take my perception of these and how I've actually applied these to my life and my business so that you can do the exact same. So I'm going to run through this, and then we're going to basically run through all of the principles, and then again I'm going to break down what I got out of it and how I perceive this stuff so that you guys can apply it as well. So first one is mentalism. All is in the mind, is in the universe. Everything is mental, and so there's basically 3 different planes. Okay, there's the mental, there's the physical, and then there's the spiritual. I'm going to bring up a really important stat about that here in a second. Okay, the second is the correspondence: as above, so below; as below, so above. Number 3, vibration. Nothing rests, everything moves, everything vibrates. This is a very important one, and I feel like all 7 of these, they all kind of commingle, and I'll explain what that means here in a second. Number 4, polarity. Everything is dual, everything has poles, everything has a pair of opposites. Number 5, rhythm. Everything flows out and in, everything has tides, all things rise and fall. Number 6, cause and effect. Every cause has an effect, every effect has its cause. Everything happens according to law. And then number 7 is gender. Gender is in everything. Everything has masculine and feminine principles. Gender manifests on all planes. So I just wanted to run through that real quick, and I want to break down all of these and then get to the 3 big things that have really made the biggest shifts for me within this book. Okay. So as mentioned, I feel like all these kind of commingle, and they all kind of like form together, and there's aspects of each one that adhere to the next one. And so one of the biggest things, as I mentioned, is that this universe, it operates on 3 planes. Okay, there's the mental plane, there's the physical plane, and there's the spiritual plane. And the interesting thing about that is that most people operate on the physical plane, right? They operate solely on the physical plane. Bear with me here. But you have to understand that the physical plane is the lowest plane. Okay, and here's the thing, is that I learned about this recently, is that according to that physical plane, it's about 0.0035% of the entire electromagnetic spectrum. And so if you're just simply operating from the physical plane, then you're operating from the lowest plane, and that's literally like this small piece of this entire universe, right? And so basically what I'm saying is that, like, to focus on just the physical of what you can see is kind of delusional, even though people will often say, like, if you're focusing on something and believing in something that is in the unseen, then you're being delusional. But if there's all this vastness in the universe and only a little bit of it is the physical plane, that's kind of delusional, if you ask me. So I'm going to get into why that's even more important, what they discuss at the end of this book, and one of my favorite chapters in this. I'm going to kind of walk through it. But correspondence: as above, so below; as below, so above. Basically, that there's this dance. Okay, it's always in the mind, and then it translates into the universe. The universe translates into the mind. It's this back and forth. Okay, vibration: nothing rests, everything moves, and everything vibrates. Everything is energy. Right? This microphone is energy. This marker is energy. This book is energy. But what's interesting is because this looks like matter, but it is just energy vibrating at a different frequency. And the different levels of what things are vibrating at depends on what type of energy it has and what type of frequency and what that is actually pulling in. We talk a lot about that in our Skool community, and manifesting is like, it's so important to get on the frequency of that what you desire, and then that is magnetically attracted in. as opposed to just hustling and go on the physical plane, right? So just understand that. I find the interesting point about this is like, think about water, based on how it's vibrating, how it's vibrating, it changes forms. If it's vibrating really high, then it turns into gas and steam, or more so steam, right? But if it's vibrating low, then it turns into ice and it's cold, right? So it's literally the same thing. It's just vibrating at a different frequency. Polarity. Everything dual, everything has poles, everything has its pair of opposites. And that's why I say these like correspond with each other, but think about that as like hot and cold, right? It's literally the same thing. It's just at a different frequency and has its opposites, has its polarity. So hot is over here, cold is over here, happy is over here, sad is over here, love is up here, fear is down here, and that adheres to the scale of consciousness by Dr. David R. Hawkins. So I'll talk about that here in a second. Rhythm. Everything flows out and in. Everything has its tides. Everything rises and falls. So understand that like life and the universe, everything is really just like water, right? And think about it as waves. I often reference the song by Russ. It's called Waves. And it was a really profound song when I heard it. And it basically says, everything is waves, and sometimes you're on top, riding the wave, surfing, life is good, and then sometimes you come crashing down. But the thing to understand is that the good times and the bad times are constantly just coming back. They're always coming back. The good times are coming back. You'll be on the top of the wave. You'll be surfing. Everything's going good. And that time will come back eventually. But you also know that the bad times, when you come crashing down, is coming eventually, right? And just think about from a surfing standpoint, the surfer is never going to be always on top of the wave. They'll be surfing for a while, and then eventually they'll come down, right? So it's always this flow. It's always this polarity. It's always this rhythm, right? So again, everything flows out and in. Everything has tides. All things rise and fall. Hey, number 6, cause and effect. Every cause has an effect. Every effect has its cause. Everything happens according to law. And that's truly one of the biggest things to understand is that last part. Everything happens according to law. There's laws in this universe, and if you negate these laws, you're just wrong. Like, the laws, that's how things work, right? When you understand these laws, then you can start adhering to the universe and play the game as you want, and you're basically helping yourself win this game, as I talked about on this previous video where I did a whiteboard video where we're talking about life is literally a game, and most people lose. In fact, like 98% lose because they don't understand the rules that are involved in this. Okay, so I'll get into that here in a second. But number 7 is gender. Gender is everything. Everything has a masculine and feminine principles. Gender manifests on all planes. So I want to talk about like cause and effect. We talked about this on one of the previous videos again. But basically, think about it like a money machine or just like a factory, right? You put in something. You put in, let's say here. This is kind of a good example. So if you put in these 2 markers and you put in these different colors, eventually something's going to pop out. I think that would maybe be green, maybe more so like purple. But these essentially are the cause, and then purple is the effect, right? Purple wouldn't just be purple. It's got to like have something that sparks the purple, right? And so that's really what they talk about with the world is mental, the universe is mental. It all starts in the mind. And we talk about this all the time, but it's like in manifestation, it doesn't just happen. It's cause and effect, okay? And the metaphor that I constantly give is that it's like a plant. Like a plant doesn't just become a plant. A plant is a result of cause and effect. Whether that's let's just say a redwood tree, okay? A redwood tree doesn't just appear, right? It's a result of cause and effect. A seed is planted in the ground. It's then nurtured with sunlight, with water, right? And it's consistent over and over and over again. And then eventually the seed sprouts and it grows, right? It doesn't just happen. So everything in this universe is cause and effect. Cause and effect. You have to have something that sparks the initiation, and then you have to have something that actually is produced from that initiation. Once you truly understand that, like everything is mental, everything starts in the mind, that's when you're operating from a higher plane. See, again, when I talk about the planes, it's physical, 0.0035% of the entire spectrum is physical, right? Then there is mental, then there is spiritual, right? So everything starts in the mind, and the more that you are staying on the mind, you control, you're able to navigate the physical. And so many people just think that it's, just everything, just take action, and just live in this physical world. But that's at effect. If you're just constantly living in this effect world and the physical, you're not putting the seed in the ground for it to sprout, right? So that's why it all starts in the mind. And on that note is that with gender, I think this is fascinating. I've been learning about this for literally years now, and I didn't know anything about it before. But the whole concept of gender is in everything. Everything has masculine and feminine principles. Gender manifests on all planes. So think about this. There's always kind of like two camps to personal development. And one is just like, decide on what you want, go for it, hustle, and just think about it, visualize, go. And then there's the other camp that's more of just like surrender and let go and let things come to you. And so they're both great, right? There's nothing wrong with either or. And that's what we always talk about is the woo and the do. We talk about this all the time inside of our Skool Community on our live calls, right? And then we talk about that with our coaching accelerator clients as well. But if you're just operating solely from woo, where you're just like letting go and surrendering and allowing, like that can work for sure. But eventually, you can just get complacent with that, and then nothing's actually happening. You're not taking action, right? You're just more on the mental and the spiritual plane. But if you're not taking action, you're not living in the physical plane at all, you're not taking action, you're not being decisive, you're not going after what you want and setting a plan, right? Then if you're not having that balance, then you can either get firmly burnt out if you're just always hustling, grinding, going, and you're staying in effect. And then you can also just get bored and just like fizzle out, if you will, if you're always just staying on more of the feminine side. And so there's both of that in all of us, right? It's not just gender as like male and female, it's just masculine versus feminine energy, because some guys are more feminine, some women are more in their masculine, but it's about finding that balance and always coming back and forth, right? And so when you can really truly understand that, that like sometimes there will be points where it's more about hustle, it's more about go. And then there'll be other times where you just want to surrender and relax and just let things come to you. And it's a constant balance. And the more aware that you get, the more that you stay on the mental and the spiritual plane, you understand this stuff. And that's one of the biggest takeaways that I got from this book. And I want to talk about this. So like, I think this is a good metaphor. So, you're getting very sleepy. No, I'm just kidding. So basically think about this, think about this whole, all three of these planes is like a pendulum, right? At the top, there's very little movement, right? But at the bottom, it's almost kind of chaotic. It's going back and forth, woo and do, masculine, feminine, masculine, feminine, masculine, feminine, hot, cold, hot, cold, hot, cold, ice, water, ice, steam, love, fear, hot, cold, you get it. Like down at the bottom, it's swinging back left and right, and it's just the opposites, as we talked about, polarity. Okay, everything is dual, everything has poles, everything has its pair of opposites, and there's a rhythm, right? I think everything is described perfectly right here, okay? There's rhythm, there's correspondence, there's polarity, there's a lot of back and forth, and it's like the waves, right? The waves are up top, and then they come crashing down, but then they come back up, come crashing down. So everything is all connected, and the reason that I'm sharing this is that this really is the metaphor for all the planes. So down here is the physical plane where everything is going on. It can be kind of chaotic. And if you stay in that plane, it's going to be somewhat overwhelming. I was there for a long time, and most people are, where they're just like constantly all over the place. And then as you come up, let's say this point right here is more of the mental plane, right? It's controlling the physical plane because of cause and effect, right? Because if this thing wasn't moving, then this thing wouldn't be moving, right? But here's the thing, is that this right up here is the spiritual plane. This is where it all starts. And it's, it's an interesting concept, because as us physical humans, as us like human beings, it's like you can't oftentimes get to a level of consciousness to truly understand this physical plane. But the more that you meditate, the more that you stand in silence, the more you stand in solitude, and you listen to God, you listen to the spirit, you listen to the universe, you listen to the divine, you start tapping in more into the spiritual realm. And that's when you really are in control of everything, right? Because that they talk about in this book at the end, one of the last chapters, is that the higher the plane that you're at, the more that you are like in control of the laws, right? You're not so much swayed by it. You're never not going to be like have to adhere to these laws, but the higher that you get, the better perspective. It's almost like, think about it like this: is like you're going through a maze, okay? And so at the lowest level, the physical plane, you're just going back and forth. You can't see anything. You're just like left, right, left, right, left, right, trying all these different things. And eventually you'll get to the end of the maze, right? That's powerful. But what if you took a little bit of a, jump up? You like climbed up on the top of the maze and you like could look over. That's essentially the mental plane, where you're like, oh, I think I go over there. Oh, yeah, look, there's a loop out there, right? And you're kind of looking over and maybe even climb over, if you will. And so that's the mental plane. But think about this, is that what if you actually had a lookout where you could actually climb up and you can see it and you can paint it all out? Or even, I think this is actually probably the best metaphor, is that you actually have someone up top that's just telling you, hey, they got the vantage point. Let's say it's even a bird that's just flying around, and it can tell you, it can relay everything. Or even a drone, as I constantly refer to on this YouTube channel, is that we are the drone. We're just the observer. And so let's say you have this drone that is simply just telling you, yeah, keep going right, keep going left. Oh, move left, go right. And it's just much easier, not as swayed by like, oh my gosh, where do I go? Do I try left? Do I go right? And you're just in this emotional state because you're living on the physical plane. But rather, it's not about just climbing up to the mental, right? It is good. You can do that. But again, it's like you're kind of doing this dance between mental and physical. But once you come up top and you become the drone and you're just flying and you're just observing, and then you can just know and direct where you want to go, that is when things become truly powerful and you're operating on the higher plane. And because of that, you're not as swayed by the other planes. So that's my rundown on the Kybalion. Let me know what stood out to you. Let me know what you got most out of this. I'd strongly recommend that you read this if you want to actually get the most out of this and get the most, retain it the most. One of my favorite recommendations is to read this while you're listening to the audiobook. And I actually get the audiobook off of Spotify. I have a Spotify premium account. You can basically get any type of audiobook on there. So strongly recommend that. Put down in the comments, as we always mention, the only way that you're actually going to learn this stuff is if you take the information and you share someone your notes on this book, and you put it down in the comments so that we can really continue to cultivate this community. So appreciate y'all. If you guys do want to join the Skool Community right now, it is still free. Soon we will likely charge for it. And then if you are an entrepreneur that wants to take your game to the next level, raise your frequency, remove those subconscious blocks so that you can increase your revenue and your impact, make sure and check the links down below. I just made a brand new video that walks you through our process and how you can get started with us if you do apply and you do adhere to the type of people that we're working with. So we're looking to help entrepreneurs really step their game up. So if you want to learn more about that, all the links are down in the video description and on the first comment. Appreciate y'all, and we'll see you on the next video.